What is going on, Raptors Nation? What is going on? It is Luca here with the Raptors Nation podcast. Hope you're all doing well. In today's show, I wanted to go over the Raptors signings, take a look at what they've done so far, take a look at the rest of the offseason, and then we will get into some questions if there are any about what has been transpiring with the Raptors. Of course, it's been a relatively quiet Raptors free agency. That was the expectation. It died down significantly after that big fish narrative was put away. No Giannis because he never became available. Durant obviously went to the Houston Rockets. And then after that, it was pretty at bay in terms of what the Raptors were going to do. We knew how limited they were financially coming in. So we didn't expect the big free agent signing. And we didn't get that. We got a couple of smaller moves. And yeah, we're going to take a look at what the Raptors have done. It looks like a Raptors legend is his time with the team is all but over. We'll talk about what Chris Boucher's market is looking like because I don't expect Boucher to be back. And then, we'll take a look at what else to expect this offseason. We got Summer League next week, and we'll dive into some questions as well. So do me a solid, guys. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. The Raptors Nation podcast coming to you every single Thursday. All right, so the Raptors, they got their free agency started by re-signing Garrett Temple. This is purely just to have a veteran presence in the locker room because we know Garrett Temple doesn't play a whole ton, and he agreed to a one-year, $3.6 million deal with the Raptors. So Temple, he's getting paid $3.6 million to not play and just be a bench mentor. Sign me up. Because that's exactly what this is. They used some of the money that they did have to bring back Temple, but, Temple didn't play much, as I just said, but it was his value in the locker room, which is the reason why he's coming back, and he was into another one-year deal. Head coach Darko Rajakovic has praised Temple for his leadership. He's been able to connect well with the younger players, served as a valuable mentor, still is for players like Scottie, and that's exactly what this is. Temple, he is that veteran leadership in the locker room, and the Raptors are hoping that he can help bridge the gap between this team being a young bunch and hopefully this team competing next season. As Temple, we see it, he is going to be a future coach. He's got that in his DNA, whether you see him, talking to certain guys like Scottie, taking the time in practice. He looks like a coach when he's sitting there on the bench. Obviously, he had to come into some games and play when the Raptors had a whole ton of injuries and they were tanking. He did appear in 28 games for the Raptors, averaged 1.9 points, 1 rebound, 1.1 assists. But largely, he was just that important locker room guy. This is literally what it is. So because of that signing, the Raptors were super, super limited in free agency. And of course, we're then anticipating were the Raptors going to do anything? They did have a little bit of wiggle room to do a minimum contract signing. And, Ben Simmons' name was linked to the Raptors, and I definitely didn't want to see that. But the Raptors, they did the right thing. They were able to address their backup center position, which has been an area of need for this team all of last season, for the last 2 seasons, really. And they signed Mamu to a 2-year, $5.5 million deal per Shams. And I actually really like the signing. I know it's a name that a lot of people weren't familiar with once you first saw the news break. But Mamu is what this team needs. It's a stretch big. He's going to bring a different dynamic than Jakob Poeltl. And he's going to have a bigger role here as the backup to Poeltl. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do in Darko's system. But you look at the 26-year-old, he did shoot at 37% on 161 three-point attempts for San Antonio last season. So that's something encouraging. Again, he's a big that can space the floor, which is what you need with the type of personnel this Raptors team has. This past season, he broke out for a historic performance. Scored 34 points in under 20 minutes against the Knicks on March 19th. It was the most points a player scored in under 20 minutes since 1977. And his per 36 numbers in 61 games with the Spurs are actually really, really damn good. He averaged 20.4 points, 9.9 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.9 blocks on 50% shooting from the field and 37% from deep. Again, his per 36 numbers. But this is a guy who's expected to see more minutes here with this Raptors team. Like I said, he's projected, slated in as the backup to Poeltl. So now when Poeltl goes to the bench, the Raptors will have a big who can come in and space the floor and shoot. And I think this is a good use of really the final move, I would believe, of Raptors free agency. They bring in exactly what they needed. They didn't draft the big. They addressed the big via free agency. And now the Raptors, they have 14 players on guaranteed contracts. Elijah Martin is expected to fill the last spot. And that's basically it. That is going to be the team. Like, barring a trade, this is the Raptors roster. There is nothing else to be made, no other move to have happen. And now, because of these moves, the Raptors are projected to go into next season just over the tax. But it is important to note they will have until game 82 of next season where they will be charged the tax. So it will be simply a matter of letting this group go out there, see what they can do, and then readjust if needed by making a trade at the trade deadline to shed some salary. Because after that signing, they also agreed to an extension with Jakob Poeltl, and Jakob Poeltl got the bag, $104 million 4-year deal for Jakob Poeltl. And I know a lot of people have their different takes on this. I'm okay with this deal. Yes, it's Miles Turner money, but you can make an argument. Jakob Poeltl is right there, could even be better than Turner. You need a good big man. Quality big men are back. This isn't what it was a couple years ago where you can get away with small ball lineups or have a small ball big. You need to have a quality big if you want to be a legitimate player in the NBA. We saw the Lakers literally scrambling for a center. They finally got their center in Aiden. Saw some of the teams that were competing for a championship. They all had legitimate centers. You need a big. And Jakob Poeltl proved that he is arguably this team's most valuable player. Whenever he went down, this team was terrible. I mean, they were bad with him, but without him, they were even worse. They were just an abomination. And you look at Poeltl, he is coming off a career high, so he did earn this extension. 14.5 points, 9.6 boards, 2.6 assists, 1.2 blocks, 1.2 steals, and 57 appearances last season. And the Raptors clearly value Poeltl. They did not want to include Poeltl in a Kevin Durant trade, reportedly. And they know how important it is to have a quality starting center. They haven't had a center prior to Poeltl. They had a couple of seasons where they didn't have one. We knew how much of a disaster it was at the center position, post-Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol era. And the Raptors, they paid a lot to get him, going back to that trade with the San Antonio Spurs in 2023. So you knew the Raptors valued him, especially since they weren't willing to part ways with him in a deal for Durant. So you knew he was going to get paid and he was going to get the bag. And just to illustrate, again, his importance to this team, Raptors are 13-44 over the last 2 seasons without Poeltl in the lineup. That is horrible. And they are 42-65 when he plays. So again, not over 500, but a hell of a lot better than a 13-44 record when he doesn't play. So he is what this team needs. And the hope now is that Poeltl is going to be an essential part of helping this team get to the next level as this team tries to, re-enter. I don't want to use the word contention, but at least be a playing team, at least be a part of that conversation where they can do something. So now this begs the question, are the Raptors stuck? Are they screwed? Because you look at this team, it's projected to be a tax team, and you can make an argument that this is a mediocre team. I mean, they are. Until they prove otherwise, this is a mid team, right? This is a team that was just in the lottery, and I know they got the pieces, but they got to go out and prove it. They got to prove that they can be really, really good, because if they're not really, really good, even with a healthy Brandon Ingram, then it becomes a huge problem. Then is when we'll really see some big trades happen during the season, because you would think the Raptors would definitely want to get off of RJ Barrett's contract, Emmanuel Quickley's contract, because if the results aren't there and you're a tax team for a team that is doing nothing, then you can see why, the old boss of this team got fired, because essentially it is an expensive mid team until they prove otherwise. Now, do I have high hopes for this team that they can be more than just mid? I do. And I think it's going to come down to Brandon Ingram. If he stays healthy, plays like an all-star, he and Barnes thrive and flourish, I think there is some nice pieces on this team. But if Ingram gets hurt or Barnes doesn't take that next step, it really starts with them two, in my opinion. Like, they're going to make this ship sail. If those two, don't take that leap collectively or don't gel nicely together, I don't trust the pieces around that this is going to flourish and boom. If those two set the foundation, this thing can rock beautifully. But that's a big if until we see it. Because if this team does exceed expectations, they are a top 6 team. Yeah, maybe you could justify this team being a tax team if you're a playoff team and you are in a good position where you can win round 1. You can swallow it. But if this team is, hanging in there in the play-in and you're paying this team all this to be like you're a tax team for essentially a play-in team, that's when I think we'll see some serious changes. And that's when we can see some trades going down to the deadline. So that is what I basically see for the rest of this offseason. I don't expect a major bombshell trade. I think we're just going to get through Summer League. Nothing crazy is going to happen. And this team's going to go in as is. And then we're going to see what this team looks like. And we'll know very quickly, first month, how this team stacks up. And if this team is thriving, and by thriving, I mean they're a 5th, 6th seed at the trade deadline, I don't see a change being made. But if they're, again, a play-in team, struggling to be a play-in team, sluggish out of the gate, that's when I think we'll see some major changes, right? The free agents, NBA trade deadline is the new free agency in terms of like how much player movement we see. Like we saw the last trade deadline, it was historic. It's like everybody switched teams. So that's when we can see, and when I think it'd be really, really likely that we would see a Barrett trade, a quickly trade, if the results aren't there. So that's why it's a big year, right? Like no more of this leash for anyone, even Darko. No more of this, we're rebuilding. We're just trying to see what guys can give us. Like they are expected to win. They are expected to be a playoff team. When you're paying a team like this and you're a tax team, you are expected to be a top 6 team. And that begs the question, is this team a top 6 team? I don't know, because it's going to be tough. Because you look at the East, let's look at it right now. Just run down some of the teams who I think are going to be better than the Raptors, as is. Cleveland is projected to be another top team again, top 2, top 3 seed. The Knicks are going to be better than the Raptors, so that's 2. I think the Hawks killed it this offseason. They're, I think, going to be a better team than the Raptors. I have them as a 4 seed. I really think the Hawks are going to take a jump with Trae Young. Porzingis I really love. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Luke Kennard. Like that's Jalen Johnson's probably going to take another step. So that's a really good team. The Sixers are probably going to be back. That's another team right now. If Embiid is healthy, I chalk up as better than the Raptors. So that's the 4th team. And like the Sixers got a lot of good young talent, right? McCain's going to be back from his injury. You got Maxey. I think Edgecombe is going to end up being the 3rd best player of this draft behind Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. And then the Orlando Magic. That's another team. They make the big trade for Desmond Bane. That's probably going to be a 2 seed in the East, or could even be a 1 seed if Cleveland doesn't storm out of the gate. Like, I think at the worst, the Magic are a 3 seed. So those are 5 teams just like that who I pencil in as being ahead of the Raptors. Then you got the Detroit Pistons. You can make a case. Maybe the Raptors can leapfrog them. I know they did sign Karis LeVert, but can the Pistons replicate what they just did? I was expecting them to maybe get aggressive and go after a bigger name. They didn't. Malik Beasley, we know his situation. They lost him Hardaway, so they did lose a little bit. We'll see how much of an impact player Karis LeVert is. So that's a player I'll give the Raptors the benefit, or that's a team I'll give the Raptors the benefit of the doubt over. Then we got 3 teams that I think are going to be the wild card teams in terms of like, you don't know what you're going to get from them and what to expect. The first one being the Boston Celtics. I'm not going to right away say they're ahead of the Raptors. They could be, just because you still have Brown and White and some key players, but I really think the Celtics are going to try to tank. Like, you look at their starting 5, they diminished their old starting 5 because of the second apron, rightfully so, but they haven't really been aggressive this summer to replenish what they lost. They're kind of content of kind of rolling into the season with what they have, and it's not very good. Like, you still have Derek White and Jaylen Brown, but Anthony Simons running your point, Tillman as your starting center, Niang as your power forward. Like, it could get ugly in Boston. And I think they're expecting a gap year. They're expecting to be bad, and they could very well tank, get a top pick in a stacked 2026 NBA draft, and then come back next season ready to go with Tatum, like the following season. So I could see a world where maybe the Raptors are ahead of the Celtics. I don't know what we're going to get from that team. I'm leaning more towards they're going to be a tanking team right now. So then we'll say, for the sake of it, the Raptors are ahead of the Celtics and the Pistons. They're still that 6th seed in the East. Who's it going to go to? Then you got the Indiana Pacers, another interesting team. What are they going to look like? No Halliburton. They lost Turner in a shocking transaction by the Bucks where they released Dame and then signed Turner. They have no center. They did not replenish Miles Turner. They did not replace him. Aiden went to the Lakers. I don't know who they're going to get now as a big. Maybe Al Horford. So is Indiana going to be better than the Raptors when, again, you have really nice depth? That depth got you to the NBA Finals and still Siakam, but you don't have your big man, Miles Turner, who was a huge reason why this team went on a run, and the heart and soul of this team. This team's best player in Halliburton. So that's even another team that can take a step back. They reacquired their 2026 first-round pick, so they can be flat out terrible, tank, and also have a gap year like the Celtics and get rewarded with it. Get rewarded for it because they have their pick. So that's even another team the Raptors can be ahead of. And then the Milwaukee Bucks. They got Miles Turner. It's going to be a phenomenal pairing, I think, he and Giannis. But your backcourt is Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. I'm sorry, but that's, if you're a Bucks fan, that is not going to lead you to anything in the East. And Kyle Kuzma is very questionable. So unless Giannis goes Superman, the Bucks could be another team that is like a fringe playing team. Maybe the Bucks get the 6th seed just because they do have Giannis and he's that good. And I do like the pairing, but that's another team that you can make a case potentially the Raptors being ahead of. So I think with that being said, it's still tough. Like, it's still not a shoe-in that the Raptors are going to be a top 6 team. I think, like, there's no guarantees for, as you know, the Celtics, Pacers, and Bucks are projected to be worse this season. They could still end up with a top 6 pick based on just how bad the East is. But yeah, I mean, there's no guarantees for a top 6 seed if you're the Raptors. And then you get into 7, 8, 9, 10. I think for sure the Raptors are a playing team. I mean, if the Raptors are not at least a playing team next season, then it's a serious issue. And those will warrant some very, very deep conversations about this team and how they were put together and all that. But I think even if you're a playing team, you can't justify paying that team the tax. You can't be paying the tax for a playing team. Like, the only way you can justify it where you're not going to be making moves at the trade deadline is if you're a 5th or 6th seed. Bare minimum. And again, there's no guarantees you will be a 5th or 6th seed based on all the scenarios I just rolled out. I think there's at least 4 to 5 teams that are for sure better than the Raptors right now. And then, like I said, 3 wildcard teams that you don't know what you're going to get. They're either going to be really bad in the Celtics, Pacers, or Bucks, or maybe one of those teams will surprise you when you think they are going to be bad, but they're really going to end up still being good. So there's no room for error. For the Raptors, if they do have their eyes on being a 6th seed, and I mean they should, especially based on what their payroll suggests. You made that trade for Ingram. You want to be a playoff team. You don't want to be struggling in the play-in with the likes of the Heat. I don't know, the Hornets. The Bulls probably will be there because they're always there. And then one of those teams that takes a step back, or 2 of those teams that take a step back. So I think it's going to be an interesting year, guys. I think it's going to go either very, very well or very, very bad. I don't think it's going to be a middling team. I think this team's either going to excel to the fullest, surprise us as like a 6th, 5th, hell, even 4 seed, or just be downright disappointing and be like a 10th seed, 11th seed. Like, that's worst case scenario. And obviously, if that's the case, this team's going to be blown up again at the deadline, because there's no way you're going to have a middling to bad team that's a tax team. I mean, that would just be incompetent managerial practices. So yeah, I'm excited. It's kind of a unique situation right now. I mean, we still have the rest of the offseason. It's literally July 3rd, but the Raptors offseason is basically set. This is the team. Don't expect a major trade. This is what they're going to roll out going into next season. They're obviously expecting a big year from Scottie. Brandon Ingram is going to be the exciting part of all this, because we're finally going to get to see him play in a Raptors jersey. And that is it. We know what we got, and the expectations are going to be there. Now let's see if this team delivers. If the answer is no, expect major changes once again. So it is going to be very interesting to see how this team ultimately performs. But let me know, guys, what seed do you see the Raptors, and what do you see this team doing next season? All right, guys, let's get into some Q&As for the next little part of this show. Like I said, not a whole ton to talk about just because the Raptors free agency, it pretty much came and gone very, very fast. Actually, one more thing I wanted to say before we get into the Q&A. Sorry. Chris Boucher, he's basically a goner. I mean, there's no more room for him. Like I said, 14 standard contracts. That 15 is going to go to Eliza Martin. Chris Boucher's time with the Raptors is all but over, guys. And I'm interested to see where he's going to sign. I'm surprised he hasn't signed with the team yet. I hope it's a contender because Chris deserves better than just being on a terrible team for the sake of being on a terrible team. But there's no pathway right now that the Raptors can bring back Boucher. The only way was if they didn't make the signing of Mamu, and that was a possibility. I thought after the draft, they didn't pick up a center. I'm like, you know what? They'll probably just bring back Chris Boucher if they're trying to compete. Team-friendly deal. But when they brought in Mamu, that basically signaled the end of Boucher. And obviously extended Jakob Poeltl, and you see what they're working with right now. So, yeah, it looks like Chris Boucher is going to be gone, guys. And it's going to be officially the end of an era. Of course, Chris Boucher is the lone member of the Raptors 2019 championship squad. And once he officially signs elsewhere, it will be officially the end of an era. So that's crazy. Chris Boucher, I mean, where's he going to go? I don't know. I think a lot of teams can use him. I think he's still valuable for a contender. I think Golden State, we can see a reunion there. Obviously, he started his career with Golden State. Maybe Philadelphia. He's got ties there with Nick Nurse, Kyle Lowry, etc. So those would probably be my two guesses right now. Maybe Denver if the whole Jonas Valanciunas thing backfires, because it looks like he might be going back home to play in Europe. So Denver is even another possibility, but don't expect Boucher to be back on the Raptors. Like I said, his time is all but over. And the latest series of moves basically solidified that. So, yeah, it's going to be the end of an era, man. No Chris Boucher. And that championship team will officially be all gone. That is crazy because it feels like it was just yesterday, but we are now, 6 years removed from it, and there will be not one player remaining from that squad. And really, only two members from that squad. When you talk about coaches, staff, all that, it's literally going to be Bobby Webster and McKechnie. Literally the only two members from that 2019 championship team and personnel. That is crazy because there's even no more Masai now. So that is pretty wild to think about from that perspective. But that's life in the NBA. It's like you're winning 1 year, fast forward 5 years later, you got a completely different situation, a completely different team, and it really is wild. So life comes at you fast in the NBA. All right, now we can get into some Q&As just to end the show. If you guys have any comments, questions about what's going on. We just got a breaking news here from Shams. Free agent Jabari Walker has agreed to a 2-year deal with the Sixers. All right, so we're still getting some news trickling in. Obviously, free agency was crazy on day one and day two, but it's kind of died down now. It's been a little bit of stuff today. It's going to be like that for the next little while. And then once Summer League hits, which I believe it begins on Monday, it'll officially die down. Oh, we live, baby, says, oh, we live, baby. I can't read. Yes, sir. How many wins you got the Raptors for? That's a very, very tough question. I mean, considering they had, 30 wins last season and they were trying to lose and guys were in and out, I'll say 45. I'm not going to say 50. I've seen some crazy predictions like that. I'm not going that far, but I think 45. I think I could see a 15-win increase. Basically what we saw from the Pistons a year ago. They basically went from a lottery team to, 44 wins that got them the 6th seed. So 44, 45 wins. That'll get you probably the 6th seed in the East this year. So that'll be my early prediction. I don't know, man. That backcourt is atrocious. Like I don't like they upgraded for sure their front, but I still think collectively they're kind of in the same spot. Like I know you're gonna run point forward with Giannis, but I think they need to do a little bit more if they want to be taken seriously as a contender. Again, that backcourt not looking promising. Maybe they go get Chris Paul, but then again, Chris Paul is up there in age. How much is he going to add to your team at this point of his career? But I don't know. Like as long as you have Giannis, they should still be, a top 6 team. But who knows if he asks out? Let's just say the Bucks get off to a poor start, or somebody gets injured, and their season goes up in flames. That guy might ask out. Bobby gets an A+ for the offseason. I mean, I wouldn't say an A+ or an A, but based on what he was working with, really couldn't do much more than what he did. Yeah, I think you give him a solid grade, like not including the draft, just for free agency. Like you bring back a locker room guy, you get a backup center who can be, a gem, a hidden gem, what I called them on my personal channel. And then you extend Poeltl, a key member of this team. And I like the Poeltl extension too, because now that gives you options. Now you could potentially trade Poeltl a year from now because he is under contract and you won't, lose him for nothing. So it does give you flexibility to, potentially trade him if things don't work out. So I do like the deal and I think it is fair value. I know, what is it, like 25 and change a year, but you got to pay big men nowadays, man. That is what it's become. The NBA, the center's back in the NBA. Just like the good old days where you got to pay a big man. And Jakob Poeltl, I mean, he's been so huge for this team. So, well, there is a report right now that Damian Lillard is open to signing with a team this offseason under the right terms. So it'll be interesting to see where Dame lands. Of course, he's expected to miss, I believe, all of next season. I think maybe there's a world that he could be back for the playoffs for whichever team lands him. But that's an interesting fish out there. Like, maybe could the Raptors somehow be in that? I wouldn't bet on it. I think if I would bet Dame going to the Clippers would be very interesting with Harden and Kawhi. Golden State, that'd be lethal, him and Steph. A team trying to win now. Maybe Phoenix. Those are a couple of teams I see. But yeah, in terms of the Raptors, I know I saw that floated around online. I just don't see it. But who knows? Maybe quickly flames out and the Raptors get Lillard. Oh, the other team was Miami. I could see Miami making a run at Dame. Remember, they were rumored. They were in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes along with the Raptors a couple summers ago. Neither team ended up getting him. He went to Milwaukee in a shocking move. That came out of nowhere. But it's still crazy that the Bucks, they just flat out waived them. And by extension, they were able to sign Turner. So that was something I did not expect. That was one of the biggest moves right now of free agency. I would say that and the Michael Porter Jr. trade, those take the cake for being the biggest moves of free agency to this point. Or else it hasn't been that crazy. It's been pretty tempered. Like I said, yesterday and today, it's calmed down a lot. And you knew on the Raptors front that it was going to be quiet. You were not going to get a whole lot of craziness. So that is that's basically where we stand, guys. NBA Summer League, it will be coming soon. I'm excited for that as well, to see the young guys in action. The Raptors, they did announce their 16-man Summer League roster. Headliner is Colin Murray-Boyles, Raptors first-round pick. Elijah Martin's going to be there. Then you're going to have sophomore Jacoby Walter. I'm excited to see him because he's going to have more of like a ball handler role. Shed, Mobo, Battle, Chomchi. He's going to be back in action and get a lot of minutes in Vegas. And then you got some other guys that are going to be looking to impress the Raptors organization. Of course, there is another spot open now following the departure of Jared Roden, Colin Castleton, Lawson. Those guys will be in action as well. And just to throw some dates at you, the Raptors will open up Summer League on July 11th. So what day is that? That's Monday, no? Or no, that's Friday. So I think yeah, we still got some time. We're about a week away from it. So Raptors will open up Summer League on July 11th. So next Friday, we'll get Raptors basketball back for the summer against the Bulls. Then they're going to take on the Magic on July 13th, the Nuggets on July 15th, and then the Warriors on July 17th. And then if the Raptors are going to make the playoffs, that's when they'll play or I think it's the final. That's when they'll play their 5th game. And if they don't, they'll still play their 5th game, which will be an exhibition game at that point. But that is basically it. Summer League begins for the Raptors next Friday. So a week from tomorrow, we're going to have some Raptors basketball. It'll be the young guys in action. And I'm just excited to see Colin Murray Boyles, obviously. Jakob Poeltl, he's going to have an increased role. He's going to basically be the team's point guard. There's no Grady Dick. There's no Abaji. So, I expect Walter to be the standout of this year. He should dominate as a second-year guy. Shed should have a big showing. Mobo, Chomchi. I know he's still far away from becoming a everyday rotation guy for the Raptors, but still, you want to see him take, a step. Jamison Battle, the sharpshooter. He should have a strong showing as well. So, and then it's always nice to see some of the other guys who are trying to prove themselves to get a training camp invite to see if, they can muster up a big performance or two. So Summer League's fun. Just see the young guys. Obviously, there's going to be the big names like Cooper Flagg playing and some of the other fellow rookies, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Edgecombe. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch the young guys in action. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people expected the Turner move. That was one of the more shocking moves. That was the most shocking move of free agency. The Michael Porter Jr. trade wasn't that shocking only because I felt Denver was done with him. But this right here was the most shocking move of free agency. The whole sequence, waiving Dame, and then the Bucks getting Turner. And you got to think the Bucks and Pacers, they were in a heated first round playoff battle, and essentially Miles Turner goes to their rival. That rivalry just got a whole lot more interesting now. And it's the Pacers, they didn't want to pay Turner, and they lost a big part of the reason why they were just in the NBA Finals. So that, I think, is a major L for the Pacers. It's they had to do everything in their power to bring back Turner, who was so perfect besides Siakam and on this team, and now they lose him. And I think he's going to even be better now next to Giannis. He said, nah, it's B. RJ trade makes it an A. Yeah, like I said, it's Jace. I don't expect an RJ Barrett trade. It's funny. I mean, one of the guys that was rumored was Cam Johnson, and I can't believe people said they wouldn't do RJ Barrett for Cam Johnson. I mean, I would have done that in a heartbeat. I think Cam Johnson's the better player. He's better defensively for sure. Good shooter. But yeah, that's a potential trade target off the board now. Like I said earlier, I don't think the Raptors will be rushed to make a trade. They don't have to get under the tax until game 82 of next season. So I really think they're just going to roll it as is, see what this team does, and then readjust at the deadline. I think they're going to give this group a chance. And you know what? That's fair because this is a team that has not played together, literally. Brandon Ingram has not played a single game with this core. Even the regular guys of IQ, Barrett, and Barnes, Barbecue, they have been very limited in their playing time together. And then with Poeltl, it's even smaller than that. So it's this team hasn't even had a big enough sample size together to justify if they're worth keeping around or not. So I think that's what this season is for. You're going to get that glimpse. You're going to have that sample size over the first 3 months of the season. And then you can see it's not going to take long. This is either working out great or it's not working out at all. And then you got the trade deadline to make some drastic changes, as this team did make last trade deadline. Nobody expected them to trade for Brandon Ingram until the last couple of days before the trade deadline. So that's where I think we're headed. I think we're headed for giving this team the benefit of the doubt, seeing what they can do, And it better produce results, because if not, I think that's when we'll see this team blown up. And that's when we'll see trades of, for sure, RJ Barrett and maybe even Emmanuel Quickley, depending on how Quickley looks, because there's a lot of pressure on Quickley. I think I would make an argument. There's the most pressure on one player going into the season is on IQ, because with RJ, you can say the fit is bad, but you can't knock what he did. Like, he had a career year. He showed you he can be a very good player, and he did take that next step. So you're not questioning his game, you're questioning his fit. Whereas Quickley, you're questioning his game. You're questioning if he can be this team's lead guard, if he can be consistent, if he can stay healthy. With RJ, you didn't have those questions. He was staying healthy. He was playing at a high level. So that's the thing. With Quickley, he's got to show you that he's worthy of that contract, because right now that is looking like one of the worst contracts if he doesn't improve. So there is the most pressure on IQ to deliver on every other player on this team right now. So that's the guy I'm looking forward to seeing the most. You know, he had a bunch of injuries last year, couldn't really build any momentum. Guys didn't out of the lineup. There's no excuse going into the season. If he can't stay healthy, if he doesn't deliver as this team's point guard, then that's when you got to seriously consider this guy a part of your, like, if you wanted to keep him around for your future. With RJ, it's just strictly fit. Like, for what you're paying for him, you'd be better off with a 3-and-D type guy in a lineup of Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram. So those are two likely trade candidates if this thing falls apart for the Raptors. I think Poeltl, Barnes, and Ingram, for the first year at least, are safe from everything. Another guy is Grady Dick. I think he's also a likely trade candidate if this thing goes south, because you need to see Grady Dick be a lethal shooter. You need to see consistency with his 3-point shot. If he's unable to be a consistent shooter and space the floor, we know he's a liability defensively. It's like, what value does he bring at that point? That's another guy who could be on the chopping block. And that's something to look for. Like Jakob Poeltl, Grady Dick, will one of those guys truly, outshine the other to the point where it's like, okay, we're definitely keeping this guy long term. This guy, I don't know. We might have to get rid of him. And I really think it might be that. I think, I'm high on Walter. I'm buying all the Walter stock right now. I think Walter is going to be a tremendous player. I think he's going to have a big year, and I do think he's going to outshine Grady. I hope Grady does produce and deliver. I mean, you can always, it's not a matter of one or the other. You can definitely keep both, but I think there's motivation there for these guys. It's like, you want to show, who can be better than the other. And then Boucher's in that equation as well. That's even another likely guy to be traded if this thing goes south because of his contract. So there's a lot of interesting internal things to follow this season. And it's going to just come down to, is this team producing? And if not, then we could see a bunch of guys be on the potential trade block for this team. But if things obviously go smoothly, you're going to keep the team as is. You might even be aggressive at the trade deadline in terms of being a buyer and getting a veteran. But then obviously you would still have to probably trade away one of the younger guys on this team. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a much more entertaining season than seasons past. Like I said, there's expectations this year, something you couldn't say the last couple of years. And I think there is a chance the Raptors can finally break their playoff drought of a couple of years. I think they could take a jump. I do. But again, it's one of those things that you won't know until you see this team in action. And right now, it looks like this is the team. Barring a trade, this is the team. So we'll see if this team pans out or they disappoint. It's as simple as that. Manjeet C says, I agree with you. Yeah, it will be something to monitor this season. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be under the magnifying glass, and it's a put up or shut up year. You do not have that long leash as you did from 2 years ago, last year. Like, there is going to be expectations, which is going to make it a much more enjoyable season for us, the fans, because we're either going to get a really good winning product or a product that once again needs fixing and going through another maybe transition period after that. So let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you think this Raptors team is a playoff team, or do you think this team's going to fizzle out and be disappointing? They are going to enter the season a tax team, and a lot can happen from there. It's been a roller coaster ride this season. It's hard to be happy and it's hard to be sad. Yeah, you got to just stay stoic. Really, man. There's been a lot from like the losing seasons to now Masai gone. Like, it's been a lot that has happened with this franchise over the last couple of years. Big change. Like I said a minute ago, like 6 years ago, that championship team, no one remains other than Bobby Webster and McKechnie. No player remains, with Boucher in all likelihood going to sign with another team. So it just goes to show how quickly things can change. And for this Raptors team especially, it's like everything has changed very rapidly. You know, we went through all the trades of OG, Siakam. Now we got these new players. Now these players are reportedly rumored to be on the trading block. Masai's gone. Who's going to be the president? Actually, I forgot to mention that because I did say this offseason's done with. That's the one thing that will in all likelihood be addressed. It won't be a person, it won't be a player change, but it'll be that president vacancy. I think that's the last thing that remains for this offseason. Who is that president going to be? Are they going to go external or are they going to go internal? Is it going to be Bobby Webster or is it going to be someone else? Pelly basically said they're going to still do their, interviews externally. Bobby's going to interview for it, but I would guess we're going to have our next president for this basketball team before next season starts. So that's the biggest thing that will be addressed between now and the start of next season. And a big name out there is Bob Myers, but do I see Bob Myers with the Raptors? No, because it's like you basically cheaped out with Masai because you didn't want to justify paying him the, north of $10 million a year. Fair. I mean, the guy collectively is a legend. I'm not going to diss Masai because he helped bring a championship here. Who knows if that's going to ever happen again? But last 5 years, it hasn't been good. So Bob Myers is probably going to command, probably not as much as that, but pretty close to it. And I think they're trying to save money here. Like, that was a cost-cutting decision more so than anything by Rodgers. So I don't know if Myers is going to be the guy. If I had to bet on it right now, I would say they're probably just going to upgrade Bobby. Or promote Bobby. I would lean towards Bobby being the president. This is Masai Ujiri. Like, this team does have Masai Ujiri's fingerprints, which in turn are Bobby's fingerprints. So, like, if it's a completely different team, I get it. You bring in an external guy, but in this situation, like, this is Masai and Bobby's project. What's going on right now? It would make sense to just keep Bobby there, promote him, and see it through with this version of this team. And then if this goes south, you can make a big change or bringing in somebody else and firing Bobby. But I will lean more towards, keeping Bobby on board as the president right now because I just don't see anybody else coming in. And those are big shoes to fill with Masai. Like, I know Bobby and Masai, they differed a lot. Those were some of what the reports were saying, but they still worked very closely together. So it's like, that's a guy who you can get traces of Masai from in Webster. Rodgers will probably find a business guy to do that side and upgrade Bobby. Yeah, that's very plausible. That's probably the likeliest scenario right now. I'd be shocked if it's anything else. Yeah, Bob Myers would be awesome. I'd definitely be on board with that. I'm just being realistic, and I just don't see the Raptors bringing in Bob Myers. But it will be. I don't think Masai is going to be out of a job for long. That's the other part of it. I'm interested to see where Masai lands. I think there's a lot of pressure on Pelinka. Masai would probably be a favorite to go there, or even the Bucks. We could see Masai with the Bucks. Kurt, I touched on this earlier. I am excited. I like Summer League. I really do. I like seeing the young guys play. I'm excited to see the second year guys, how they should stand out above the rest. Walter, Shed, Mobo, Battle, Chomchi. Obviously, the rookies. You want to see Martin, CMB. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think the squad looks good, honestly. I think it could be a competitive squad. No Grady and Abaji, obviously, but I think still with the players that they have, the Raptors could probably go out there and compete and try to win this thing, honestly. We saw how good those rookies were last year, so those guys should definitely shine in an environment like this. And I'm high on like CMB. I think he'll have a good showing in Summer League. So yeah, the Raptors could maybe they're one of the better teams. Maybe they can go out there and actually try to win it all. So I am excited about the Summer League squad. And in general, I'm just excited for Summer League. Like I said, it's our first look at Cooper Flag, Bailey, Edgecombe, Harper, Malawach, Carter Bryant. I like this draft class. I think there's going to be a lot of good players. Yeah, Castleton, he'll be back. He plays well in Summer League, so like those are the guys that are going to be playing really hard, right? There's no guarantees that they're going to be connected with this franchise. So it's like they want to leave a good impression and get another look by this organization. Those are the guys that are going to be playing the hardest, the guys who aren't guaranteed a spot. So I think he'll make for good competition. I do. All right, guys, that is going to conclude today's pod. Appreciate all of you for joining me on this one. Be sure to hit a like and subscribe and leave your comments down below on everything I talked about in today's pod on the replay. Really appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. You can catch the Raptors Nation podcast every single Thursday. You can follow the live feed on podcast feeds, Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. And you can follow me on X as well at Luca Rosano 3. I will be back next week to chalk up Summer League even more as Summer League does begin next Friday for this Raptors team. In the meantime, hit a like, subscribe, and check out my other channel where I do more NBA Raptor stuff, Luca Rosano 3. The hope is I will get media credentials soon, so I do want to throw that out there. Pro stream, and hopefully I will be in the media room very, very soon. And Kurt, thank you to you as well. Have a great weekend. All right, guys, that is it for me. Enjoy the weather. It's Lucas signing off. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all again in the next one. Take care.